Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lethal Venom podcast. This is the podcast where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Mike Oppenheim. He is going to be joining us today and be telling us a little bit about his background and what he does. And I'm excited to have her talk today. So, Mike, it's a pleasure to have you. If you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. My name is Mike Oppenheim, and I'm a 43-year-old writer. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm married, and I have several children, and I live a pretty quiet, fun life. I run a writer's workshop locally and a philosophy group, so I'm kind of interested in like community stuff now. And yeah, I've led a long, fulfilling life. I don't know if long is 40 something years, but it feels fulfilling. I've done a lot of different careers. I was a professional musician. I've been a teacher. I've worked and managed in restaurants. I've been to 30 something countries, all 50 states. And I genuinely try to, and most of the time, like nearly everyone I meet and talk to.
It says on here that you worked in hospice care. What is hospice
Yeah.
care like?
I think depending on your personality, the answer would be like extremely varied. For me, I like comforting people and helping people, so it was always fulfilling, even if I was unable to see the effect I was having as helpful, because just knowing that I was one person there to try to help people as they go through, it's usually the hardest time in their life, whether it's the person dying or more likely the people around the person dying who are having the harder time. So it was very informing because, like, as we sit here in 2025 in America and in a world where people are controversial and talking at each other and about each other, you kind of don't see that the same way when you're in a end of life situation, and you kind of see that like all of us have this in common, this desire to hold on to people and to hold on to our own life or to let go. And so to me it's a unifying experience. It helps me see the humanity in all of us.
I like that. I see that you have also lived in a foreign country. What's life like over in a foreign country
Uh,
like?
yeah, I've lived in Thailand on and off, and it was not for that long. But I was married in a previous marriage to a it's a long story and it's unique. But she was born in America. She is a U.S. citizen, but she was raised in Thailand by Thai parents who are not U.S. citizens. So when we married, we agreed to split time in both countries, and so I got to live with her and her family in Bangkok, which is like the closest approximation is New York City as far as size, density, and just kind of like the shape of buildings and stuff. Similar traffic, that kind of stuff. But it's a different world. I think when people talk about the East and the West, it's a good terminology to use. Like we really are all humans, and we're all like trying to eat and feed ourselves, and and take care of ourselves. But there's a very different way of life there, and even in a big city that looks like other big cities, it's just not the same. So I took a lot of great things away from the experience, and I think the hardest part of the experience, which was a great takeaway, is culture shock. Just over and over and again, missing home and not understanding why you miss a place you don't particularly think you love. Because I'm not like rah 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 American, and I never have been. So it was very
Hmm.
interesting. You just want to like be understood and be heard and be listened to the way you would feel like like you and I talking, just two people from a similar enough culture with the same language. So it was really hard, and Thai is an incredibly difficult language for me as a Westerner to learn. I was able to, and I'm okay at it, I guess, but it's tonal, and it's just like you put a marker at the end of a question to let someone know it's a question. Like just a lot of things that aren't even remotely similar, like if you learn Spanish or French or something when you know English.
Lord, I took Spanish for 2 years and I didn't learn anything. I still don't know how to speak it. I barely passed the classes I took here. So,
Yeah.
and that was with like using resources and like cheating and like, so that's interesting. Earlier you said that you had been to every state. Um, what does America look like to you?
I mean, look like physically, it's very, very diverse, and I think we should be humbled by like the massive enormousness of our country. It is crazy when you're driving through a state like Montana and it's just hours and hours and hours long, and then you think about
Mm,
how like you could get from Delaware to New Hampshire to Maine in like 3 hours. So it's like very interesting to then look at like an electoral map, for example. And I'm not going to get political, but just literally watching like this dinky state have votes and then this giant state have votes. And also knowing that like New York has 27 million people in like a state
Mhm.
this big, and Montana, which is like this big, has like 500,000, maybe like 2 million. But the point being, when you experience it in real time, especially driving, you kind of start to understand like why so like not why someone would want a gun in like New York City or Oakland, California, but for sure like in a big ranch state where like your closest neighbor is miles away and there's wolves and animals and stuff, like you start to see kind of like why people act the way they do. As far as like what does America look like people wise, that was like the more interesting thing to me, which is like most of us that I met, because I'm a writer and I would interview people and I was trying to like really, you know, figure out this country. And again, this is all, I think I finished all 50 states in 2009 if I remember correctly, so I've still been back to a lot of them and stuff. But as I completed this project from like 1999 to 2009, going to all 50 states, I really started to respect our differences. And I just wish that was still happening today. I wish that was like, I wish there was a way to sell that to people, but like not in a fake selling way. Like I wish there was a real way to get both sides. I believe there's more than two sides, but let's pretend that there's two, the
Mhm.
way the media wants us to think. I wish
Right.
I could just have people like lower their guard and their defensiveness and like open up to the idea that like maybe there is like a way to compromise between like what seem to be extreme values, because I think there's a real connection between Americans and the land, like what you specifically asked me at the beginning. Like Oregonians love their tree culture and like Montanas love their big sky, and you know it's just it's interesting.
I'm trying to think what Alabama's known for.
That's where my aunt
think
lives.
hunt. I think probably hunting a lot. Do you have a favorite state that you've been to?
I have I love certain places. New Mexico is probably my quick answer. It's just got like every weather pattern. People talk about New Zealand because it's a good place to film movies, like Lord of the Rings was filmed there because it has every like climate. I'm not saying New Mexico has every climate, but it's because of its diverse geology and everything. It really has like just a lot of real natural beauty to it, and the storms are beautiful and the weather and the sunsets. But I don't know if it's like culturally where I would want to live. So, and actually, I like Alabama as kind of like a guarded secret as far as like it's very beautiful. I'm not going to get into like the culture because I'm too influenced by my aunt who lives there. So but she's in Dothan. I don't know which part you're in.
I live in Auburn, so she's like two
Okay,
hours from here. But
yeah,
yeah, that's like the southern southeast corner of the state.
yeah,
I'm trying to think. Probably more. I don't know where I would want to live. I've wanted to live in California because I just have a thing where, for my career, that's where I want to go. And people said, "Why don't you go to New York?" And I said, "Well, New York's just different to me. It's more city based, and LA has more suburbs.
for sure. You're not wrong.
And
So, do
so
you
I
like
don't know how.
driving in traffic?
Well,
Because that's what those suburbs do. It just because I mean, it's like to get from one side of LA to the other can take you 2 hours, and I'm not exaggerating. It's crazy.
it depends on the day and who's on the road for
Yeah,
me for driving.
that makes sense. Yeah.
I see that you were toured as a rock band. So how did the rock band come about?
Yeah, so that was my first real dream that I remember. When I was about 11 in 1991, no, 92, I guess. Well, anyway, the point is I was 10 or 11. I heard Nirvana for the first time and I was blown away. It like blew my mind. I was before that like a little kid pretending to like a lot of like hard heavy metal bands, but I was young. I didn't really have like an actual love for it, but Nirvana was like the first time I remember after Billy Joel as a kid being like, "Oh, this is like speaking to me. This is like my sound." Like it just did something for me. So I immediately started begging my mom for a guitar, and I was musical, and my parents didn't want me to quit another instrument because I'd quit like piano and saxophone and all these other things. So I begged and begged and begged, and she gave me a guitar, and it really stuck. I mean, I just played it for hours. I would like not choose it over homework. I would have chosen like Doritos over homework at that point. But the point is, I did choose it like willingly as like a real thing. You know, I wasn't like smoking pot and then like playing guitar as like a side. You know, I was like really focused on music, and I was writing tons of songs that were all terrible, but I was still writing and just feeling that like muse and that consumption. So by the time I was in high school, I was pretty much hell bent on starting starting a band. And my parents, they were really good. This was like a pretty cool move they pulled. They just said like, look, you don't have to go to college, but if you're not going to college, you have to move out and you got to get a real job. Like, we're not going to like let you pretend that you're working and living a real life and just staying at home and playing in a guitar. So they weren't telling me don't be a musician. What they said was, if you go to college and you graduate, then become a musician. Like, why not just have this degree so that if it doesn't work out, you have something to fall back on? So I went to college and I did exactly that. As soon as college ended, I got a band assembled in New York and we all moved there and we played together for 2 years. And we broke up right as we were starting to crest to the next level of success. It's sad in retrospect, but to this day, I'm so proud of like the one album we made. And then I had a solo career and played in a few other bands for the next 10 years. And it was really fun. I don't like staying up late at night, so I'm really not meant to be a live musician. I would like to record albums in the daytime and go to sleep at 8.
I'm still in that late night life. I go to bed like 2, 3 a.m. And it's all
Yeah.
because of like college and stuff. I'm
Yeah, totally.
slowly, even though I just graduated, I'm slowly like getting older and going back to like going to bed early, which I don't really like. I miss having to
Yeah,
stay
no,
up late.
yeah. You can fight it as long as you want. It'll naturally happen in your late 30s and
Mm.
40s. It just everyone I know. It like I have a joke now, nothing good ever happens after 10. Like, it's not true, but it's just, why bother? Just go to sleep.
And on top of all that, you are also an author. You've wrote 5 novels. Um, do you remember what how this came about?
Yeah, yeah, writing is definitely the through line of my life, because even with music, I was more of a writer than a performer, for example. I'm really just a creator. I made films for years and I went to film school. I'm really into like writing a script, writing a screenplay, and then filming the movie and making the movie and then editing the movie. But that's very similar to writing. Like, editing is a part of writing, and if you hate editing, you don't like writing. Like, people who say I like writing, but I don't like editing, I try to correct them. I'm like, you don't like writing. You like something, and I don't really know what the word is for that. So writing novels came really easily to me. It came easily because I had a passion for it. So when I was quitting my music career in 2006, I started transitioning into writing because it just seemed like a natural evolution. You get to do it alone. You get to do it wherever you want. It's very affordable. You didn't even at the time need like a laptop or anything. You could just bang out something on like a public library, even, you know? So, yeah, I've published 5 novels. I've actually written 7. Since I was able to sell a few, I've actually learned that it's good to sit on them and wait and then try to sell them when like the timing is right. But actually now, the market and the way it works, it's easier and better for me to self-publish. So I will be publishing at least 2 more. And then I'm always writing short stories, which are not my favorite thing to read, but I love writing them. So the first real impetus to write was in 2006 when I entered what's called the 3-day novel competition. And I don't know if it's still out there because I'm like published and I have an MFA, so I wouldn't like, it would be unfair to try to use that contest because it's for amateurs. But it was incredible. It lit a fire under me. You have 3 days to write a novel, and I really enjoyed it. And it let me see that like no one wants to sit at a computer for even 30 minutes writing, but when you get into that flow state, which I'm sure you've been in, it's incredible. It's just the best feeling on earth. So that's the reason I keep writing. But I like I said, I run a writers workshop locally, so I get to interact with other writers every single week, and I get to read their stories and they read mine, and that's such a fun part of writing. If you don't have a community, it's really isolating. I don't know how much I would recommend that.
So for the contest, did you have to like meet a deadline? Like, what was the minimum amount of pages you could had to have?
Yeah, I don't remember if there even was a minimum. I know that it was like on the honor system, and I don't care if other people broke it, but I really dutifully did it. I went. A friend had an art studio. She was a painter, and so she gave me the key to her art studio for 3 days. So you had from I think midnight on a Thursday till midnight on a Sunday, I think it was, or Friday to Sunday. Yeah, no, midnight Thursday. So meaning like 12:01 a.m. on Friday, Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and you had to submit it by midnight on Sunday. And I did not win. I don't even know if I even ranked, but I did get an honorable mention for one of the longest entries, and that was very telling that I have like a real ability to constructively actually write like decent material that's long and quickly, and so that's really been an ally in my life. I can meet any deadline. It's pretty easy for me.
I started doing writing. Well, I was a journalism major when I went to Auburn. I majored in that throughout all of college, and I really didn't know I could write well until one of my professors had said, "You're probably one of the best writers I've ever had."
Nice,
And I was like, "Okay." And then I started writing on my own. I wrote poems at first. I've probably wrote about almost 90 now. And it's just
nice,
and it's like what you said, when you're like in a very bad place, that's when you write the best. If I'm happy, I can't
absolutely.
think of anything happy. Like, if I'm trying to think of something real positive, I sit there for like 50 minutes and can't think of a word. And then yet, if I'm sad, I can write like four in like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
It, I don't get it. And my roommate's the same way. He plays guitar as well, and he said he writes best when he's sad.
yeah,
So
and
I
I think
think, so I think it's one of those weird things where it's you write you're at your best when you're most down.
yeah, and I don't even I'm not critiquing what you said, I'm adding to it. I also would add that even if you're not at your best and even if it's not your best, what we all want is vulnerability in art. We want like to connect with someone's vulnerability, and that's something that took me years to figure out. But like if you're writing about a traumatic scene, but then like a real event from your life, whether it's poetry or fiction or anything, and then you stop short at the moment where you cringe at your own memory, you failed. Like that's it. Like
Mhm.
the whole point is to release the cringe, like not to make people cringe. It's not that, but it's like that thing where you want to shirk from your own memories and your own emotions. That's what art, I think, really connects all of us with.
And then on top of all that, you also you have a podcast called The Meaning of Death, and it's a
Oh,
podcast where you mainly talk about dying.
well, it's called Coffin Talk. Sorry, it's not. Yeah,
Oh,
did
okay.
not say that. Yeah.
I was looking at like in quote.
No, that's okay. I just
Okay, gotcha.
it's only because it's not about the meaning of death. It's called Coffin Talk, and it really goes anywhere. So it's not yeah, it like we interview people all about what they think happens when you die, but that's like a small segment of it. Usually what's magical for me about it is just like learning about someone and then adding that into the conversation because again, I worked in hospice, so that's what brought it into existence.
So how did so it says on here that you've interviewed experts and you've talked about experts. What have they told you about death that people would want to know?
Well, there's different experts and different people, but I would say the near-death experience experts, like surgeons and doctors who have seen patients flatline and then return and talk about it, they're not wide-eyed, mystical, like now I'm going to drop everything and go to Peru and do ayahuasca people. They maintain the course, like they're still scientific, but they all say it would be silly and absurd not to admit that there is something weird going on when that happens. And for people to dismiss it is kind of like weird. Usually they're too busy to take it to the next level, but some of them do. And so, like, I interviewed someone from the biggest near death experience research center in America, and it was fascinating. I mean, there's like 4,000 cases just from this country in the last 10 years. Like there's way more people who have these phenomenal experiences than there are like I'm very surprised there's not a popular TV show with it or stuff like that. But I'm also not surprised, and goes back to why I started Coffin Talk. This culture, America now, I'm talking very specifically, not Europe, not like Britain. We do not talk about death. And if anything, we ridicule aging. All we do is sell anti-aging products. If you're a celebrity and you're 25, you're like getting old. It's really bad, in my opinion. I am making a value judgment. I do not think it's healthy. I think that all of us have to age by the law of nature, and maybe someday they will figure out how to stop that. I sincerely doubt it. But the near death experience stuff, it should give people a great sense of hope and enthusiasm and joy because all these people return saying the same thing. They say, "I didn't want to come back. It's so great over there." But I have to come back. This is a place that I chose to come to do some work or something. And so that theme is mind blowing to me because it's not like reincarnation. It doesn't get into like any religious belief. It just always seems to reinforce the same thing, which is yes, this place feels unpleasant, but yes, you want to be here. And yes, you want to stay here until you finish whatever it is you came to do. And that's also interesting to me is it's not my job to tell you what to do and it's not your job to tell me what to do. It's my job to listen to I don't want to say higher power because again these people are not religious by definition, but I would use the word intuition to listen to like whatever voice it is that isn't like the brain that tells you you suck and you don't look good and you should like quit whatever it is you're trying
Mm.
at. So it's very optimistic for me.
A lot of people do like the anti-aging and all this stuff. You don't see a lot of people, more celebrities, but even down here, it's more people that are higher class. They don't want to represent aging naturally. They want to hide it. They want to try to do everything they can to keep it from showing.
Hmm.
And I've even heard some influencers be like, "Oh, I never would use this," or because I remember there was a YouTuber I watched. She and her sister were like, "Oh yeah, I would wish that LA would have more of a balance between more people aging." And then like yet a few years later, one of them started getting Botox, and I thought, okay,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, go back to what I'm like. You just contradicted yourself and just basically went
Yeah.
against what you said. So.
I'm not a boomer like at all. I mean, I'm like elder millennial is
Mm,
probably what I am, 1981. And the point I'm trying to make is when I hear people say like okay boomer or just dismiss people for age-based reasons, I just laugh because I'm like it will happen to you. Like unless you die when you're 30 or 40, like you will start aging and you will have to deal with ageism, or you can buck the trend and you can be kind and nice to people who are older than you. You can try to be sympathetic to what you'll eventually go through. And it's not to say you should listen to them and shut up and obey their orders. It's not like anything that severe, so much as we all got to respect each other. The old have to respect the young, and the young have to respect the old. And then I'm directly in the middle. The middle is actually where I feel a lot of pressure because I see both sides really clearly right now. You know, I can
mhm.
remember what it's like to be out of college, but I also have parents who are really getting up there, and I can see, you know, just the struggle, like the physical pain, waking up every day to like a body that isn't getting better. That's something to be sympathetic and compassionate about.
Who has been some of your biggest inspirations during your this whole journey?
Yeah, it's usually authors come to mind, but also a lot of comedians because I really believe that at the end of the day, if you can't laugh, you're doing it wrong. Like
Hmm.
I've been diagnosed with cancer. I've been hit by a car and almost died. I've had a real bad divorce. I have an unfortunate family situation I have to deal with on a regular basis. Like a lot of stuff has come my way, but I always try to remember that it's not so much I can't bear it, and you got to have a sense of humor. So with that said, my greatest influences were people like Mark Twain and Kurt Vonnegut, especially because they, like Vonnegut, for example, went to World War II against his will, didn't want to go. No one really did. And then he was captured in a POW camp and he saw 100,000 dead bodies above him after a massive bombing by our forces over Germany. And it changed his life. He wrote Slaughterhouse-Five about it, and yet he still had a sense of humor, and he gave the gift of humor to everyone. So Mark Twain was similar. He lived it when slavery was legal, and it just drove him almost insane, as it should. And he, you know, he's a white guy in the South, so I can't imagine how hard that was to be like surrounded by a peer group that was, even if they thought it was okay to have the thoughts of anti-slavery, they wasn't allowed to say it out loud for political reasons, for culture reasons, and for economy reasons. Like it would destroy the local economy. So he had like such a weird burden, and yet he rose to the task. He wrote Huck Finn. He like made people aware of something without like really pointing a finger. And so that's what I want to do, is I want to gently poke fun of the status quo in the places where I think it's off. And that's why I said the thing I did about like I wish both sides, which again I do not believe there's only two sides. I believe all of us are diverse and have very different opinions, and we just
Hmm.
happen to be told that like guns are over here and drugs are over here and religion's over here. You know, like that's fake. That's not true. Like those things aren't actually under different columns. It's just a million different issues. And so Twain did that and Vonnegut did that, and I tried to do that. I tried to like not be specific and be generic and vague enough that people can connect their own dots, but with humor. And so those are the people who have influenced me the most. I would say those two, and then George Carlin. That's why I mentioned comedians, because he was very similar, but he was like oral.
I do 100% agree with you about the opinions and ideas and sides and whatnot. We live in such a political country now, and
Yeah.
it's different from when I was growing up because everyone just kind of, for me, politics was something that you didn't talk about because it was, everyone's not supposed to know it, but now it's something that everyone has to know. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't really tell that business because that's how I was raised. I basically grew up how I was raised. And I mean, I don't tell about it unless someone desperately wants to know. And it's something I don't brag about anything. And it's every time there's like conversation about politics, I just kind of shut down and just have to sit there and be like, okay, let me hear what you have to say. and then
Yeah, and it's if we all didn't feel like we were being judged about our opinions, then maybe we would open up more. I mean, I remember my parents saying they used to have like fun dinner parties where, oh, the Republicans are coming over and the Democrats are coming over. We're all going to talk about like fun, but like everyone shook
mhm.
hands, everyone was like okay with it. And also like it was never I think this and then well then you're this. Like there wasn't that name calling or labeling. So like you can have a thought, but it doesn't make you something. And that's where I
Right.
also think this has all gone astray. And like I'm from California, and to I would blush just thinking of the negative things I grew up hearing about Alabama specifically. Like your state is like a fake target for the West Coast. When I grew up to make fun of and lampoon, and it's really unfair. It's brutally unfair, the reputation that Southerners get, because a huge part of why Southern culture is actually really deserving of praise is what you just said, which is get along, be polite, like make society a friendly place that's safe for children and everyone to get along. And I don't appreciate. It always felt off as a kid. It felt off the way Mark Twain probably felt about slavery. Like I was just like, you people keep saying you're so like progressive and so inclusive and so into diversity. Well, a part of diversity is this place called the South in America. And again, I said Alabama specifically. Now I'm opening it up, but so that again, this country has so many strengths, and like any other country and any other culture, it also has weaknesses. But we shouldn't be like only labeling the weaknesses and all that.
Well, probably some of the things that you've heard about Alabama probably are true. So,
I mean, yeah, I've been. I'm not, yeah,
depending on
yeah.
what you've heard, I could probably approve and be like, yeah, that's yeah.
Well, and that's kind of my point is, but the same thing could be said about Oakland, California, where I'm from. Like there are homeless people all over the street. There is like human feces on the street. Like that's really actually a problem. It's not a blissful utopia. And so like for that culture to talk about your culture, air quotes, and vice versa is alarming and problematic for me because both should just see like, okay, we're trying our best and we're trying differently. And, what do we want as a global culture, not just as America?
Different cultures are the thing. I went like 2 years ago to Washington State. I went up to Seattle to visit one of my friends, and just seeing the different culture, how they are, is different. That their homeless population up there is kind of severe, especially
The
in
same,
like
yeah.
Seattle and up in
Yeah.
Olympia and around there. My friend up there was like, "Why are you so scared of like the homeless here?" And I said, "Well, it's different here. Like if say back home, if you saw someone on the street that was homeless, you could go up to them and say hi and have a conversation with them. There, these people are on drugs, and like
Yeah.
it kind of definitely scared me a little bit because of how they were acting. I thought, oh, I'm not used to this. And then just seeing them camp out on tents right next to the road, I was like, that's crazy.
It's also inhumane to actually be okay with that, not with okay with people being on drug. Like what I'm saying is inhumane, just I'll be direct, is to allow people to live in such awful conditions. Like we should have facilities and things set up, and we should have some sort of safeguard earlier in life for people. Like I think a lot of people around 10, 11, 12, you can recognize the symptoms of mental illness and other problems. And if they have an addiction, it's way better to treat someone when they're young, because the older you get and the more you repeated a habit, the harder it is to break it. And I will say this as a West Coast person who has lived in Portland, Oregon, lived in San Francisco and Oakland, California, and has visited Seattle extensively. Some of those people are very angry and intentionally intimidating, both on the street and in aggressively in your face. And it is scary and it is a problem. And it's not okay to tell people like have reverence and don't ever like step around or walk away. Like no, that's whatever your protocol for safety is your protocol for safety. But like I said, the saddest part of it is that an entire nation like Hawaii is not an exception at all to this either, has just decided to like try to ignore it to its best extent, and that's really like a sad thing to me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think we're running close to time.
Sure.
If you, for people that want to check you out more and check out the novels and podcasts and whatnot, where can they find you and just kind of tell people where they could, or some of your social media accounts?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not like huge on social media. I do post a lot of my stuff, but the main thing I do is I run a Substack now, which is www. My name Mike and then Y Mikey OPP. My last name is Oppenheim. So www.mikeyOPP.com, and at mikeyop.com, you just sign up for free. You don't have to pay anything, and then you'll get announcements of whatever I make, whether it's music, songs, videos, new novels, stories, fiction. I do everything, the podcast, and yeah, and so that's like the main thing. But I will post on my social medias and stuff. But I'm not anti social media, but I was never that into it, and I'm also just trying to keep things simple in my life. But it would be great if people want to check me out, and I would love the support of just signing up for the subscription, because I really do care passionately about a community, my community, and trying to help people. And so Coffin Talk is my attempt to help people with seeing that life will end, and there's a purpose to it. And so I try to connect as many people to as many people as possible by interviewing very diverse people. And then my essays that are nonfiction are designed to help people raise and cultivate self-awareness so that they can be happier. And then my fiction is designed to help people just think about larger and smaller social issues, but again, without like a finger wagging or an I told you so. So I try to do a lot with that one site. So I would love support if people want to go there.
Well, I appreciate it. And of course, I'll put all this information in the description box for people that are listening to where you can come back to it at any time. Mike, I really appreciate you coming on today and talking. I've really had a nice conversation.
Cool. Thank you. I've liked it too. And it's, I can tell you, it's fun to connect with young people. It's really cool to see you having a passion and developing it. And, I do remember what it was like to be your age. And I also taught college, and I was a writing teacher. And so that writing teacher, they weren't lying to you, and they weren't just saying that. Like when you tell a student that they have potential and promise and that they're good at something, it comes from like a real spot in the heart, and it's
Mhm.
connected to the brain. So I'm glad that someone said that to you, and don't ever give up on your passions. It's the most important part of your 20s.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope to say the same thing back to you. Keep growing and do what you do, and
Thank you.
you're doing really well.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Uh, well, I really enjoyed having that conversation with Mike. He's such a really nice person to talk to, and his story is absolutely wild, but it was also a good one. I wanted to thank him for being on the show today. As always, make sure that you follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts so you'll be notified about when this episode will be released. I'm at basically everywhere where podcasts are available: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pandora, YouTube, and another list of sites will be probably available wherever you get your podcasts. I also have two other podcasts. Music Talks is a podcast where I talk about music related topics. I also do album analysis and doing track breakdowns. So if you like music and would like to learn and find some more music, that would be a show for you. Also am the host of Southern Reads, which is a book podcast where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. So if you know someone that likes to read or you like to read, I highly recommend checking that one out. Social media wise, if you would like to follow me on any of the platforms, I'm Lethal Venom Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Follow me on those sites if you want to see more behind the scenes, get some surveys down, and just some general news updates that's there for you. For my personal stuff, you can follow me on at the Noah Show with 3 W's at the end on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also check out my link tree where you can find all the information about my other podcasts and this one. I will link it in the description box below. As I said in the interview, I will list all of Mike's links in the description so you can go and check him out and everything. No survey today. I didn't have a survey planned because I didn't know how the episode was going to go. Let's see. I had to yawn for a really long time. I really do appreciate you guys for listening. If you could, if you'd like to leave a little bit of a little review or / ranking of the podcast, feel free to do so. Helps me out in the long term, and it helps boost the show to people. If not, that is totally okay. You can also follow me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group. It's called Noah's Podcast. Just go on my Facebook page, and I'll link it and the link tree as well. As always, hope y'all stay safe. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.